Hello, Chef Matt here. Today we are going to be talking about pie dough and how important it is to keep it cold. Now, when we're working with pie dough, we're dealing with four ingredients: flour, butter, water, and salt. So we want to make sure that those things stay as cold as possible. Now, something that I've done is I have my flour in the refrigerator to stay cold. I've already scaled it out. I have my butter in my freezer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my butter out of the freezer and actually grate it and use that for my butter in my pie dough because that will work much better. So let me get that stuff out and we will get going. Okay. All right, so I have my flour out of the refrigerator that I was keeping it cold, and I'm going to sift it onto a piece of parchment paper. Okay, and that way when I'm done sifting it, I'll be able to pick it all up and then dump it right into my bowl. So I'm going to sift this now. I'm going to throw my salt in with it so that it all sifts nice together. And now I'm sifting it. As I get to the end, I can gently push those last clumps through. And I want to make sure I get all the salt through there as well. Now I can easily pick this up by the four corners and add it to my bowl. And easy peasy. Now I'm going to get my butter out of the freezer and grate it like we were talking. All right, so right now I have my grater that is cold, it's been in the freezer, and I have my butter that has been in the freezer also. I'm going to grate this, and I'm going to grate it into some of the ice water that I had set aside. This is going to keep my butter nice and cold. It's going to keep it from sticking together, and I just want to be careful I don't grate my fingers. That's no fun. So I'm able to grate all of this and take it out of here at the end, and it will stay cold and I'll be able to use it. An alternative is to use my food processor. I'm going to try to use that right now. I have the pieces of that in the refrigerator to keep it cold as well. All right, something I was not expecting because I hadn't done this before, the mechanism on the food processor that has to be pressed down in order for the blades to turn, because I can only assume this is because it's in my freezer, the peg that presses down on that is not pressing. So when I go to turn it on, it's not turning on. So what I'm going to have to do is press it manually to get it to come on. Okay? So that's what I'm going to be doing. Not my favorite thing in the world, but we're going to do it. I've never done this before. I'm really hoping that it works because I really don't want to have to grate all this butter by hand. Straight up honest. Okay, it is working, as you can see. It's working great. It would work better if the lock would lock on its own and I didn't have to physically push it down. But we're going to keep going. Now, I have to be very careful that I don't press my hand to the blade because what I'm doing is not very smart and I will hurt myself. And we don't want to do that. So I'm going to finish doing this probably by hand. So, and then I'm going to weigh the butter. I might have enough because I put extra butter in the freezer because I wasn't sure how much I was going to lose through the machine. So I'm going to scale that and cold ice water. Awesome. And here is my butter, my salt, and my flour. You can see the grated butter. What to do is I'm just kind of breaking up the frozen cold butter and tossing it in the flour so that I don't get any big, huge chunks because we've just gone through the process, a very painstaking process of getting it through the food processor and all those extra steps that it took. So now what I'm doing is I'm just breaking up those big pieces so that we have very uniform pieces of butter throughout our pie dough. All right, now that I've got most of those chopped up, I'm going to use my cutter, my bowl scraper, and I'm just going to continue to cut. Just continue to cut that in. And my flour was in the fridge, so it's very cold, and my butter is in the freezer, so it is very cold. All right. So now I've made a well in my bowl, and I'm going to add my water right to the very center of it. And if I do it like my grandmother used to do, we use the fork because this will bring in the outside, and you can still use it to cut the butter inside. All right, I am going to turn it out now so you guys can see, because of the amount of time that has to be on my board. And I've scraped everything out of it. I'm going to keep my hand. I'm going to try not to add any more flour to this. All right, to get this off of my hands, what I'm going to do, this is off camera because I wasn't planning on showing you guys this, but I will since I've made a mess. I'm just dusting my hands in a little bit of flour, and then I'm rubbing it together to get most of that off of there. Not a lot of flour, just a little bit, because the flour that we have in here has been hydrated properly like we want it to be. The flour that I'm taking out of here has not been hydrated. So this is how you clean off your hands. Now I'm going to use my bowl scraper, and everything that I just rubbed off my hands, I want to get back into my dough. I'm going to move my pie dough over to my plastic. Then I'm going to double wrap this up. Once this way, and then again in this direction. Now, something that I want to do is I want it to be a nice thin layer. I'm going to put it in my fridge to chill. And the reason I wanted to get it to a thin consistency is so that after it rests for at least 4 hours and I take it out and roll it, it's already at a nice even thickness to work with. I want to let it rest overnight. I want to make sure I've double wrapped it to make sure that it stays nice and moist and does not dry out any. And then I'm going to roll it out. You can use either a standard rolling pin or what we call a French rolling pin that doesn't have the handles, or you can use a marble rolling pin if you have one, because marble and stone surfaces, they absorb heat, so you're not going to have to worry too much about it getting too hot while you're working with it. All right, that's all we got for you, and